This is a story that should concern all of us. It concerns a looming crisis right on China's doorstep. There is trouble brewing in a region that Beijing considers its backyard, and this trouble has the potential to spill over into Chinese territory. Let me explain. In January this year, Italian authorities detained a 39-year-old man. They found him carrying illicit substances worth €1 million. The man claimed that he had picked up the bag from a friend, but he was arrested after investigators found that the drugs were coming from a border region where 3 countries meet: Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar. In other words, the drugs were being smuggled from Myanmar. That much was clear, but what came as a surprise was the way it was happening. See, the man told the police that his contact in Myanmar had given him a SIM card with Thai phone number. He then took a bus from there to the Thai capital, Bangkok, he said, gave him the bag and sent him to Italy. And this is not an isolated case. Just a few weeks earlier, India's Coast Guard seized at least 5 kilograms of contraband from a boat off the coast of Gujarat. The boat was registered in Myanmar. The Indian officials say they have busted many such smuggling attempts recently. Most of them originated from Myanmar. This small Southeast Asian nation is emerging as a major hub for cross-border trafficking. And while it poses a challenge for governments in the region, it's especially worrying for China because Myanmar shares a 2,200-kilometer-long border with China. Some reports say that drug smugglers are now using this border to sneak in narcotics and other contraband. China fears that this could destabilize its western region, especially the Xinjiang province. Reports say the Chinese authorities are concerned about the presence of some 60 ethnic armed groups along the Myanmar border. These groups could help smugglers and traffickers enter China, but this is just one part of the problem. Even before the military coup in 2021, Myanmar was a transit point for illegal goods. It was used to smuggle drugs from the Golden Triangle, a region where Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand meet. Then came the political turmoil and everything changed. Myanmar descended into chaos. The streets were no longer safe. Armed insurgents roamed across the country, so smugglers shifted to safer alternatives like boats. It helped that Myanmar has an extensive coastline along the Bay of Bengal and the Andaman Sea. It also helped that Myanmar had a favorable legal regime for ships. A report published by the United Nations in September last year threw light on this. It says that Myanmar has a total of 1,938 registered vessels. Of these, 1,629 were categorized as non-active or inactive. According to the UN, these ships could be used for illegal activities, since they do not comply with the international shipping requirements and are mostly uninsured. What's worse, many of these ships can switch off their transponders, so they become untraceable. This has made it easier to transport illicit goods from Myanmar to other countries. The rise of online scams has also helped. Scammers use deceptive means to con people into investing in fake assets or get them to part with money by posing as legitimate entities. The earnings from these scams are laundered through casinos and underground banks. And when we talk about online scams, Myanmar is among the worst affected countries. There are widespread reports of mass call centers where hundreds of people work together to dupe targets across the world. The promise of high salaries lures job hunters into these call centers, but most of them soon realize that they are working for a criminal organization. Those who try to leave are often killed. Thousands of people from neighboring countries, including China, have fallen prey to such scams in recent years. In October last year, Myanmar's hunter said that it had rescued more than 7,000 people from a cyber scam center. They were held captive in a building in Yangon. Among the victims were 38 Chinese nationals. Many of them had been tortured by their captors. Now this is disturbing for multiple reasons. One, it shows how deep the nexus between criminals and the military junta is. The fact that the rescue operation was led by the army shows that the two are deeply intertwined. And two, it highlights the reach of transnational crime groups. Cyber scams are no longer confined to cyberspace. They are increasingly becoming violent and well organized. In February this year, Myanmar's junta chief Min Aung Hlaing acknowledged the rise in human trafficking and illegal migration. He blamed what he called as the Western democratic countries for what is happening in Myanmar. He was referring to the sanctions imposed by Western countries. Min Aung Hlaing said that the sanctions forced many locals to join transnational crime rings. He also admitted that the army was stretched thin and could not monitor every nook and corner of the country. Well, that admission itself is damning. It basically means that the military junta does not have the resources to contain the situation, and this is unlikely to change anytime soon. Myanmar is supposed to emerge out of military rule in 2026, but chances are that this transition will not bring democracy. Instead, it will only make the army richer. Let me explain. The generals have financed private armies. They own stakes in more than 40 companies. Together, these businesses employ over 100,000 people. So the generals will hold on to their economic interests in the country. At the same time, they will continue to cling to power. They have passed laws to ensure that members of the army can become lawmakers. It's a clever ploy, and it's been successful. In August last year, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, invited Myanmar's foreign minister to its foreign ministers meeting. It was the first time that a top junta leader was being invited to an official function. It was supposed to be a confidence-building measure. ASEAN wanted to reintegrate Myanmar into its fold, but that plan fell apart after the army carried out yet another massacre. On August 7th, at least 25 people were killed in Smuggling region. The victims were mostly from the Bamar ethnic group. The junta accused an unnamed terror group of carrying out the attack. So even as the world grapples with the fallout of Russia's war in Ukraine, Myanmar is sliding towards becoming another Syria. And here's the irony, the country was not always like this. Before the military coup in 2021, Myanmar had made some progress. Its elected leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, had forged closer ties with its neighbors. The generals might have kept the country poor, but they couldn't stop it from developing ties with countries like India and China. In fact, the generals were okay with the development. They saw it as a chance to make money for themselves. Once China invested billions of dollars in building ports, roads, and railways in Myanmar, and India was not far behind. State-owned companies from India were given stakes in Myanmar's biggest bank. Indian companies were also given access to the country's biggest port in Yangon. Now all of this happened under the supervision of Aung San Suu Kyi. She was the country's de facto leader, but she never really challenged the army. Her dream of democracy was gradually being eclipsed by the generals' greed, and when she finally decided to take on the army, they struck back. On February 1, 2021, Myanmar's parliament met for the first time. The lawmakers were meeting to take oath, but before they could do that, the army intervened. It detained Aung San Suu Kyi and her party leaders. The army declared itself the winner of a national election and vowed to stay in power for at least 10 years. And that's why the story of Myanmar is so tragic. It was once hailed as the country that ended communism. The generals had played a key role in that victory. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, they handed over power to Aung San Suu Kyi. It was a historic moment, not just for Myanmar but for the entire region. But the generals never left politics. They kept enough weapons around, and eventually they unleashed those weapons on their own people. And today Myanmar is being ruled by fear. Entire villages are being wiped out. Entire communities are being persecuted. There are reports of rape and pillage. And with China breathing down on Myanmar's neck, the situation could spiral out of control any moment. What should India do then? New Delhi has always taken a soft stance on Myanmar. It advocates dialogue and reconciliation. But those calls for peace have clearly fallen on deaf ears. Now is the time for India to rethink its policy, maybe impose targeted sanctions, or stop buying natural gas from Myanmar. In October last year, India became Myanmar's largest crude supplier. Surely India cannot ignore the elephant in the room. If not for anything else, but to protect its own backyard. India must call out the junta and ask the generals to go back to the barracks.